All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start the recording. I know we've got some people still getting logged on, so we'll give people just a minute to get in here. Good to see everyone. Hi, Ms. Cook, how are you? Good to see you. And this is gonna really be a chat and chew today because I am also going to eat a little bit of my lunch while we chat. I am excited that right at 12, I'm going to hop on a Zoom with our fourth grade families to talk to them about moving up to middle school. So I'm excited to have that chat and chew today as well. So I'm really going to chat and chew. And I hope you do the same if you have time to eat lunch right now. Is that Aaliyah Ferreira? Hi, Aaliyah. It's so good to see your face. I see other kiddos popping in here, hiding from us. Hey, hey, hey. Everyone's looking good, looking great. Well, you know, we're going to go ahead and get started, even though I know some people might join us as we proceed, but just because we don't have as much time today as we normally do, and I want to make sure I can get to as much information as possible for you. So I'm going to go ahead and project my screen so that I can share the agenda for today with everyone. Okay. Oops. Awesome. So again, welcome. Thank you for being here. The big items on our agenda for today are to talk through our trimester 2 report cards. Finally, I know everybody's excited to have information about that. Also our grading policy through the end of the year and our revised policy for another year of learning. And then we'll have some time for some question and answer at the end. As always, this Zoom meeting is password protected, so the only people who can attend these are people who have our specific invitation. That's limited to Girls Prep families. I am recording the meeting just so everyone knows, and the chat stream's also recorded. That way we can respond to people, and I can also post it for families after the fact. As we're going through, if you have a question, you can service it in one of two ways. You can use the raise a hand function, and that'll let me know that you've got a question and I can pause and let you come off mute. You can also use the chat feed to type in questions that Ms. Lopez can either try to respond to or that we'll respond to at the end when we get to the Q&A. So I just wanted to start with a community builder. This was something that I actually did this morning and really enjoyed it. So we know that it is the end of Teacher Appreciation Week, and I wanted us to just take a minute to think about our days in school and who was a teacher that had an impact on you and what made that teacher special. And I would love to have a couple of people come off mute to share. I know you might need a couple minutes to think, so I'll share who mine was first. When I thought of this today, I thought about Mr. Cummings. He was my 5th grade teacher. I went to a really small school in like kindergarten through 8th grade, and Mr. Cummings was actually the principal. And right before I started 5th grade, the teacher left, and Mr. Cummings stepped in to be the teacher of 5th grade. And I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, he was so scary. Like my elementary school, the principal had a big paddle in his office. Like, that's how scary he was. And I was like, oh my God, he's gonna be our teacher. He ended up just being such an incredible teacher. We had all these class pets. We had a snake named Bobo, the boa constrictor. We had mice, we had hamsters. He just made learning really, really fun that year. And so I went in really scared and came out really excited. And so today, the bonus for our community builder is to take some time later and Google that teacher to see if you can find their email. I did this with Mr. Cummings, and he's indeed still teaching at my grade school, 40 years after he's been there for 40 years. And I found his email address. And so I sent him a message today. He's probably going to get it and be like, what in the world, a blast from 1992? But it was really cool. So Daphne, I see you've got your hand raised. Do you want to come off mute and just share about a teacher that had an impact on you?
Yep. Hi, good morning. It was Miss Schenkel. She was my 6th grade teacher. I went to a Catholic school, and most of the teachers, younger, were nuns, and older. The school's been around for a long time. And she was one of the youngest teachers around, and she was really cool, and we were able to connect. She made an impact because most of the teachers were extremely strict, and I had trouble with that. You can see where my daughter gets that from, with structure. So I was just always had the good grades, but it was like, but she's a little bit combative and this and that. And Miss Schenkel gave me the freedom to be me and the freedom to express myself, and made me feel okay. You know, where my other teachers were like, you're gonna go to hell and you're just such a problem. And she didn't treat me like that. So I excelled in her environment, and we're actually friends now. We're Facebook friends. And yeah, so it's interesting to see her. She's like, I can't believe you have kids. I can't believe you got married. She still looks at me as like this 6th grade student. I still look at her as a teacher, although now she's like a grandmother. And so it's just really a beautiful relationship throughout the years with Miss Schenkel.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. It makes a big difference. Anybody else have a teacher that they just want to shout out today that made a difference in your school years?
I can let me.
Go ahead, my love. Come on off mute.
A teacher that made a difference. I like all my teachers, but two teachers that I especially love are Miss Hersher and Miss Posada, because like they're always trying to make the students like look the best in the 5th grade, except for like all the other grades.
That's awesome. I can't wait to share that with them. That's going to make their day. Awesome. Well, if you also want to shout out your teacher and you didn't have time, put that shout out in the chat. I also encourage you to Google that person today, particularly if you're a parent, and see if you can find that teacher somewhere on the internet, and just drop them a note. I know it would brighten my day. It always does when I hear from my former kiddos. I don't know if you all are seeing what I'm seeing. There's something that keeps like getting darker and getting lighter that says, please move this window away from. I'm not sure what this is. I have a thought that maybe there's a student that added a message on here. Unclear. But I don't know how to get rid of it. So we're just going to ignore it for now. I'm sorry if it's in the way. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit. Trimester 2 report cards and progress reports. In light of the governor's recent announcement that, we are going to be closed for the remainder of the year, we've finally been able to finalize our grading policy and get you information about report cards for trimester 2. So report cards, individual student report cards are going to start being distributed today via Kinvo. And we are going to be distributing them between today and May 15th, which is next Friday. So you should be expecting to receive your Scholars Trimester 2 report card via Kinvo before next Friday. We will not be sending out a May progress report for Trimester 3, which would be coming out about now. We won't be issuing progress reports during remote learning, but we will be issuing a trimester 3 report card at the end of June. It's not going to look like your typical report card. It's going to be a narrative report card And we'll talk more exactly about what that looks like, but it's going to be a written update on your scholars' progress through remote learning. And the closer we get to the end of June, the more we'll talk about what those are going to look like. What's linked in this slide, which I will share the slide deck out with everyone when we finish here, is the parent letter that is going home about our report card distribution and our grading policy for trimester 3. I know our superintendent, Ms. Bradshaw, was able to talk with our community council presidents and other members of community council across the network to get their feedback on this. And so we are happy to be able to kind of share some final information with you all, because I know that's been a big stressor on families. In terms of family teacher conferences, so we are not going to formally schedule these the way that we've done in the past, so like a full day of conferences. However, you parents are welcome after you get that trimester 2 report card to reach out and schedule a conference. What I'm asking is that if you would like to schedule a conference, that you email your grade team leader and Ms. Lopez. So I've included our grade team leader emails here just for your reference. I think you all know Ms. Lopez's email because you've all been getting emails from her since the start of time. I see Allie F. shaking her head. Yes, we all know Ms. Lopez's email. So please email if you'd like a conference. We are more than happy to set that up. Teachers may also reach out to schedule a conference if they have some concerns about either your scholars' attendance or work submission. But we are hopeful that through your point of contact during remote learning, and now with Google Classroom gradebook visibility, you've been able to get updates on your scholars' progress in trimester 3, and you feel a little more secure in your understanding of where they are. So in terms of our term 3 grading policy, we've developed a final term policy that we feel is aligned with our core values, and it's designed to be fair and equitable for everybody, knowing that we are in unprecedented times. Things to note are that grades for trimester 1 and trimester 2 are going to be preserved through the end of the year. So you kind of think about those as like frozen in time, separate from our term 3 grades. For middle school scholars, we will not be calculating a final GPA where we average trimester 1, 2, and 3 because of the adjustments in the grading policy during remote learning. The grading policy for grades K through 8 in trimester 3 has now shifted to 3 designations: high pass, pass, and did not meet guidelines. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what each of those means. And before I do, I'm going to stop screen sharing to see if I can get rid of this flashing thing that's coming up at me, because it's really distracting me. And I would ask if we could, for participants, not to screen share during this presentation, just so that it is, we're not obstructing anyone's view. Let me try to get in there again. Great. We'll see if that fixes it. So in terms of the qualifications for those categories, so again, at the end of June, we are going to be sending narrative report cards home for your scholars' grades in each core course, including their Petals course. So high pass is a distinction for scholars who are going above and beyond. Scholars who essentially you would think of a high pass designation like honor roll or principals list. So even though we know that this grading scale doesn't look like our typical where we have A pluses or B pluses, we still want to make sure that there is a distinction for scholars who are, again, going above and beyond. And so scholars will receive a high pass for trimester 3 if they have an attendance rate of 95% and above for remote learning. If they have a 90% work submission rate overall, so that means that their average for work submission in all of their contents needs to be 90% or above. And that the quality of assignments that they're submitting is high based on teacher feedback. So these, again, are scholars that are going back in and applying the feedback that the teacher's leaving on the work. These are scholars who are coming to office hours, making corrections, seeking help. These are scholars who are doing independent study projects, who are really pushing their learning and going above and beyond during this time. The PASS designation for scholars, in order to receive that, scholars need to be present 75% or more days during remote learning. So we've been really stressing that scholars need to answer the attendance question in their attendance Google Classroom, because that is going in PowerSchool as our official attendance records. And in order to receive the PASS designation, students need to be present 75% or more days during remote learning. They need to have an overall work submission rate between 89% and 66%. And again, that's cumulative across all of their subjects. And the quality of the assignments they're submitting needs to be satisfactory based on teacher feedback. So these are scholars that are regularly submitting their work. They are showing up and attending virtual classes. They are giving their very best effort in all of their work. For scholars who do not meet guidelines, these are scholars if your attendance is below 75% during remote learning, if you have a cumulative work submission rate of below 65%, or if the quality of assignments is poor based on teacher feedback. Another thing to note, and this has not come up across the board yet, but it's starting to crop up in certain grade levels, is plagiarism and cheating. So if scholars are submitting plagiarized work, or if scholars are submitting identical answers in their remote learning work and are not demonstrating the core value of responsibility, that would fall under the quality of assignments being poor based on teacher feedback. Additionally, scholars who are not accessing the materials and are just going in and clicking answers to submit something and to just get it done, again, that's not the norm we're seeing right now. But I'm just giving you an example of what would constitute like a low quality. That would be an example. So what we are looking for is for scholars to consistently answer their attendance question, attend virtual classes as best as they can with your schedule, right? And that they are submitting the assignments daily to the best of their ability. We're not asking for perfection, we are asking for best effort. We know that not all scholars are getting the same level of support that they need to do remote work as they would if we were in the building. We're just expecting best effort and attendance. If you previously received a letter that said that your scholar was promotion in doubt or was possibly eligible for another year of learning, there's still an opportunity that they can move on to the next grade level. We are going to continue to utilize a holistic approach when making final determinations for grade level placement for next year. We're going to look at academic proficiency. We're going to look at attendance. We're going to look at their social emotional well-being. In terms of the way remote learning will play into the decision about grade level placement, we are again looking that students are at the meeting that satisfactory level of engagement during distance learning. Again, just to go back to the previous slide, that would be in this pass rate here. Higher than 75% attendance, between 66 and 89% work submission, and satisfactory quality of work. So what can you do to ensure that your scholar stays on track for promotion? This is actually stuff that we've been talking about all of remote learning. This hasn't changed. These have been the priorities that we've shared with families and with students to make sure that they're on track. And that is to have your scholar attend the live classes and their scheduled small groups. To have them complete all lessons and assignments with their best effort. To make sure that they submit their completed work to their teachers. And I want to add a note here, make sure they are looking for their teachers' feedback. Teachers are giving feedback on 2 assignments per week. And the goal is that students are able to go back, use office hours time, use time on Friday to make those corrections, right? That is really important when it comes to best effort and when it comes to scholars learning from the mistakes that they're making. They also need to make sure that they're completing all of their independent reading expectations. And so for middle school, that means News ELA. And that they're sharpening their skills with the ed tech programs that we provide. So they're going on IXL and practicing math because that is adaptive software, meaning that like it's going to give your child exactly what they need just at their level for practice. And to please make sure your scholar marks her attendance every day. That is incredibly important. And just a note, we are not currently planning for a large scale summer school. So I know there's been talk about what a summer school look like. Is that going to be a thing? We are not planning for implementing summer school. Instead, we are going to use the summer to come up with a plan as educators for how we're going to support scholars in getting caught up when we return in the fall. So with that last slide was supposed to say Q&A, but it doesn't, it's just blank. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now and just take the next 7 minutes to answer questions. Oh my gosh, Miss Hackworth, I'm just seeing you, hi. I couldn't see everyone when I was presenting.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
So Daphne, I'm not sure if your hand is up now with the new question or if that was up for the previous share. Oh, I saw it just go down.
No, that was, I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the last chat and True, I had asked if you had gotten information or asked whoever, when we return to school, if parents had the option of not feeling safe, if there's a plan for parents who are like, no, I just don't want my kid going back.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually just had a meeting this morning where we were talking about that very thing. We know that that's going to be a reality for a lot of families. And so right now, we are including that reality in our planning. So I don't have the exact answer for what it will look like in fall, but what I will say is that we are planning for kind of what will it look like if we have to be, fully remote when fall starts. What will it look like if the guidelines from the CDC say not every student can be in the building at the same time? What do we do for students and families who have a vulnerable person in their home, or students who have a health condition that makes them in a vulnerable population where their families aren't comfortable sending them in at all? So
Right.
We don't have it fully fleshed out right now, but what I can say is that reality is being factored into our plans so that we can ensure, no matter what circumstances a family is in the fall, that we are able to provide their scholars with access to school and access to our curriculum.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
There was a question in the chat feed about Kindle, and I just want to reiterate to get some clarity. I've had some parents ask me I got the Kindle app, now what? You do not need the Kinvo app at all. Kinvo is just what we're using. It's a tool that we use to send messages to you. You will get a text from a random number. So it is one of us. Some teachers will put their name like, hey, this is Miss Lopez, and come join us. So if you got the message for this chat and that was from me. So it doesn't say message from Miss Lopez. I would have to tell you that it's me because it is a random number, but you do not need to do anything on your end. If you do not receive text messages or calls, if it comes as a call, a text, or an email, depending on the phone or the connection tool that we have, email, landline, or cell phone. If you're not, then you can reach out and we will update your contact information. But we've been using it the whole year. It sends you text message about attendance. So you don't have to do anything on your end.
It's so good to see faces I haven't seen in a while and faces that I get to see a lot. It's just good to see faces, even if it's in a screen. Any other questions? I know this, again, this chat and choose a little shorter than our typical ones. Next week we'll be right back at our 3 opportunities to connect. We got feedback last week that parents prefer actually not to do the midday option and to have all of our connections in the afternoon. I am happy to adjust that. Would love the feedback from this group as well. If you can type in the chat, just like your preferred times. What I've tried to do in previous weeks is Monday and Friday lunchtime and Wednesday after work between 5 and 6. But again, this past evening chat and chew, families said it'd really be better to have more of them after 4:30. So again, if you could give us that feedback, it would be super helpful. And I would adjust times for next week, because we will have 3 opportunities to come together starting on Monday.
That sounds great.
Awesome. Good to see you, Lou.
Yeah, I miss all you guys.
We miss you too. And if you are on your phone and you can't access the chat and you just want to come off mute and say midday or afternoon, that's also a totally fine way to give us that feedback in a couple of minutes so that I can do what works best for the community. I see Sherry, great, thank you. After 4:30. I see that. At least 1 midday. Okay, great.
I feel that we should try to incorporate like something like in the evenings for those that work.
Great, absolutely. We can definitely do that.
Options because my week is so, it fluctuates. I don't know what's happening week to week. So I know I could at least catch something if it's in the midday, afternoon. So I like the different options.
Great. Absolutely. After 4:30. Okay, so looks like we will stay with a mix of during the week, and looks like we'll shift to 1 midday option and 2 afternoon or evening options. So I will, as always, send a summary email out to everyone, and I'll include the times for next week so that you can go ahead and plan out which one works best for your schedule. And I'll shift it to doing 1 midday and 2 late afternoon evening options. So I run and cut us off, but I am going to go meet 4th grade families on another Zoom right now to welcome them to middle school and answer all the middle school questions. So I will have to see you all later. I will upload this video recording to Facebook, and we'll push it out via Kinvo so that you can watch if you need to reference any of the information. So thanks again for coming, families. It was really good to see you. I appreciate
Thank you.
it. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.